It's Tuesday. This is Trekland. Yes. And we are live. Growing pains, not gloom and doom. Hey, it's episode 284 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemeczek, coming at you right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 for the big picture, clarity, and sanity in all things Star Trek. And we are back here once again with another Tuesday. Hope everybody is doing well. Hey, if you are new to us on Trekland Tuesdays Live, thank you for finding your way here. We're going to be around here for another hour or so. I'm going to have my topic for the day. You should jump into the chat and say hello and make yourself known, especially if you're a newcomer. Let us know where you're coming from. Say hi to everybody. We've got a great global audience, as you will probably see. And you know what? I will take a real quick midway break, but then I'll be back, talk about the Parrot Analytics ratings, but then we'll really dive into the chat, okay? So cue up what you want to say. Jump in and say it now if you want to. I will scroll back. We'll do a marker and I'll scroll back. But thank you all for being here so much. I do want to say welcome to Trekland, where we are waiting in another couple of weeks to nail down the date for our guest. I know this is maddening, but please hang on. We're going to be announcing our guest and our date shortly. Hey, it's a holiday week here in the States, I know, but we're going to get it going. And of course, our annual open house is meant to show off everything about Portal. We open the gates and have a great guest and a mini roundtable. It's for everybody, free. We have drawings. We'll have some giveaways and door prizes too. So go over to LarryNemeczek.com. We don't have the guest and date finalized. It'll be in early December. I know this says November. It'll be early December. But you want to claim your seat now. It's all free and virtual. But hey, we're doing the giveaways. We want to do that. LarryNemeczek.com is the place to go, which, of course, while you're there, you can also see real quick and click out if you're a cruiser or not, our special Trekland Treks Away Days missions the day before and the day after the big official cruise in LA. Love to have you with us on the big group for that one. And speaking of big groups, you can also click in at my site and get info. Go to the big West Coast Away mission, the big 10-day sucker for location site filming tours with myself leading the way. It's a Geek Nation Tours production with Terrace. You can go and check out all of that. That's in July. It's a standalone. It's 10 days and nights in LA and San Fran. That's what all's going on at the minute. But today, I want to talk. You know, I've been going week to week here thinking, wow, Star Trek world has really settled down. We're talking about the episode of the week, which currently happens to be Prodigy, and Prodigy is blooming, but there haven't been any driving headlines lately. Could we be in the permanent prosperity plateau of Star Trek goodness? Well, I think we still are. But this last week has been increasingly a little bit not so settled feeling. In fact, to cap things off, I saw a few tweets, some chatter online, posts, people talking about some of the upheavals, you might say. For one thing, what really started this off was the cancellation of Mission Seattle last week. Let's talk about that in a minute. But I saw that. I saw people, people kind of taking that and running. I think there's a lot about people, the fact everything going on with Twitter, and are you going to Mastodon or now Hive? People are like, what am I doing? It is feeling a little queasy. In fact, I saw a couple of posts for people talking about even lumping in the Eagle Moss bankruptcy and, be careful with your little ships. What's up with that? Although, that is a point of turmoil and chaos. The whole thing with the future Star Trek movie, Star Trek Arabic 4, not Roman numeral 4. And even somebody pointing out that a lot of the books have not been out there. Now, good points. Yes, I know. Obviously, look, we're getting a new episode of Trek almost every week in some form or fashion. Let's not forget that. In fact, let's not forget, if you're one that's been feeling a little upheaveled, upshoveled, disheveled, upheaved the last week or two, let's maybe bring some perspective. I mean, it's been a long time since I felt like I was in Uncle Larry mode here on Trekland Tuesdays Live. But let's just take stock. Amazingly, it's Thanksgiving week. Maybe we should just take stock of not only what do we have to be thankful for, but maybe what's in upheaval isn't quite so bad. If you've been feeling that way, hang on. First off, the whole Mission Seattle thing, which was just breaking about the time I had been hearing rumblings about this for a while. Connecting with other folks, I hear people have been rumbling about it for some time. And what's interesting from a fan perspective, it's the show, it's the event, it's the thing. But, as a practicality, there's really two sides to running a big convention type event. You've got the talent side with the guests, which are grabbing your headlines, but you've also got the logistics, and you've got the relationships with the vendors and the gray area in between, actually, the publicity and promotion. And for the third time, going back to Mission New York in 2016, now we had a Mission Chicago under an exclusive license, and now supposedly Mission Seattle until the cancellation. And I really am thinking, we didn't talk about this last week. I'd heard rumblings about this. I keep hearing rumblings. There's been just upheaval connected with all these shows. Now, is it Reed Pop? Reed Pop, just for in case you don't know, Reed Events, and then Reed Pop is their pop. Reed Events has done trade shows around the world for ages. And aside from stodgy trade shows and big consumer shows and all that, aside from those, Reed Pop itself runs New York Comic Con, which was nothing 12 years ago, but they've grown it into the East Coast, Comic Con. It's got a little internal nuts and bolts, way different than San Diego. But it's the major force of Comic Con as a fan event and also as a promotional vehicle and attracting star talent to attract fans and attract media. Yeah, it's in that same place for the east half of the country, for the East Coast. Reed Pop runs that. Reed Pop has bought Comic Cons around I know they have Seattle Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle. They were familiar with the Seattle Convention Center. They have several conventions around the country. Of course, they also run Celebration, the big licensed custom Star Wars event, and several others. But between those two, you would think this should be a no-brainer. Well, that's the way it occurred to CBS, now Paramount Plus. From that side of things, and people still wondering, questioning about the ending of the Vegas license, and even we can go global here and talk about DST. I think the perception was at the studio, nothing against Creation or DST. I think this is one of those cases when you hear me talk about San Diego Comic-Con and the players at the big table. I think since the return of Star Trek, it hasn't just meant how much Star Trek are we getting fresh every week for viewers. I think as a corporation, as an entity, as a franchise that's trying to earn a little respect at the big boys table, I think they were looking to up the game for not just the presence at conventions, but their own. Basically, CBS / Paramount Plus, Paramount Global was looking to have its version of Celebration. Of course. Now, Star Trek Day in September is its own anniversary. You don't share that with anybody. That's your own produced event. And we've seen growing pains with that. But even in a bigger place, in a bigger space, a full-blown weekend convention that has vendors involved and more media involved than just a red carpet trade, and at one more time than September of the year, some other time of year, of course you want to have a celebration-like event. And I think this is where the ships passed in the night. I think somewhere on the way, the CBS Paramount side and the Reed Pop side expectation, somewhere something is not clicking. Now, people are talking about the sections not being ready at the new Seattle Convention Center and cancellation. That could be. But I think what's really going on here is a lot of factors that are nobody's fault. For one thing, pandemic. The whole Reed Pop Mission Chicago deal was supposed to have been announced a year before it was. But in the middle of wondering when we'd come back from COVID, doing the dance, creation, having the existing license, and it hadn't run out yet, and being allowed the delay to try to cram in another convention before their year ran out, because the paradigm would shift, right? The landscape would shift. People's expectations were going to shift from just knowing the comfortable zone of Vegas every year to realizing that now it's a whole new ballgame. And what will this mean? And the factor of it being a caravan. Every year it'd be at a new city, somewhat like Celebration. So again, you've got this triangle. You've got the studio, you've got the vendor, you've got other vendors, and you got the fan base. And the fan base in this case, you could almost include the vendors and the guests and everybody else who's wondering how this thing is going to land. So yeah, the pandemic threw a huge monkey wrench into all that, between our travel plans and our expectations in our comfort zone and that of the vendors and that of the guests, to local conditions, to what is the corporate way to get in and out of a license change? How do you put the best foot forward, but you leave clearance? All of that went out the window. So there is that. But I think also Reed Pop took on the Star Trek license at the earnestness of the studio. Studios wanting to grow their footprint, grow their place in the world of the franchises. And I think they saw, obviously, Reed Pop knows what they're doing. They saw that as a step up. I think Reed Pop saw that as growing a baby kind of celebration. But here is the thing, and this is why sometimes miscommunication in teams, all the way from your team or your family, your marriage, all the way up to, very publicly, movies and TV series. Why sometimes all these great people put together, the spin doesn't coalesce, it spins everybody off. That you're returning, watch Apollo 13, your returning space capsule has to hit just the right angle, or else you hit the atmosphere and go bouncing off, or you hit the atmosphere and burn up. You've got to come in at the right angle. And I think sometimes these chaotic factors enter in. Now, look at this. What happened to both entities involved both ways? CBS has blossomed with Star Trek. Yay. But CBS also remerged. And we keep talking about, I don't think we all still understand the ripple effects of the remarriage. I mean, most of you, I want to say, yay, the family's back together again. But the family's back together again after a bunch of the kids and second kids grew up and went off to college and had kids and moved. And there's a lot of blended family issues going on here. We talk about it with, the coming of the next movie. But I think there are ripple effects in licensing, in events, in the marriage of the TV, the interrelationship of the TV world and the movie world, and how you're coming at that with people. There's a lot of stitching together, and probably in ways that we're not even thinking about here. But as far as how it dribbles down, how it trickles down to we, the Trek audience, we, the Trek consumers, and even the Trek partners like licensees and actors involved, and spin-off entities, how all of that's affected is still waiting for some of these ripples to play out. And part of that is a lot of new people, are involved with Star Trek on the business side. There's been a huge expansion in licensing and social media and promotion. That's all good. That's all good. Now, the pandemic affected that too. But some of our longest old friends from Star Trek world, the whole world is not on their shoulders. There's been an expansion of teams involved in all these promotional and marketing and event spheres. And their bosses on top, and their bosses on top. And at the same time, the pandemic has affected companies like Reed Pop. They've had turnover. I know we dealt with 2 and 3 different people over the year going into Mission Chicago. So there's a lot of instability there. And now, talk about the people on both of these entities for whatever reason, new faces involved, new people involved. Are there long-term relationships? They're getting fewer and farther between. The whole thing reminds me when everything blew up in 2005 and 2006. I looked around and suddenly all the licensee friends, all the people at the studio, just the logistics, everything was blown up. And as we finally learned, Bad Robot was not intending to play like just another slice of the pie. They wanted the whole pie. Meanwhile, all these legacy assets and legacy players were like, I'm sorry, who are you? The new Lucasfilm? No, not quite. Not quite. People aren't going to give up on their Shatners and Nimoys and Kellys and their Stewarts and Frakes and Spiners and Burtons and on down the line. Not quite yet. And so that was a collision of intentions there that we all kind of stumbled around with in the fallow years. So yes, those kinds of things happen. It's been a while since we've had the smooth running machine of the 90s and the aughts. The outside industrial, business, commercial influences, pandemics, it's affecting all that. Coming back to Mission Seattle, I just think all of those factors are at play here. The biggest thing we've talked about for years, I don't think Reed Pop's anticipation, coupled with the fact that there's been turnover to add to this, but I think the whole anticipation of how the model would go is just completely not disruptive, but just completely 90 degrees to what not only the business side is expecting and maybe demanding, and maybe that's a whole other discussion, but also just the fan base. Fans talk about how there are no guests listed for months at a time. That's not the way. I think it comes down to Paramount wants a celebration type event, and to Reed Pop, celebration means everybody just show up. You know it's going to be a party. You know it's Star Wars. It's a party. Here's the dates. Just buy your tickets and come on. And that's not enough for the Star Trek world. Maybe if Reed Pop sticks with it and nurtures that along, maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 years, that's where people will be. Hey, look, the cruise with actual celebrities to a licensee, ECP, who had done themed cruises before, and even some with entertainment-related people, but not franchise and not with established people that, oh my God, we're doing a cruise. Instead of a world that's going, okay, we've done conventions for 80 years. How does this translate to a cruise? But ECP, with maybe a bumpy start the first year or two, now the cruise is a thing. Its community is a thing. The expectations are set. And yeah, I hope to be a guest on a cruise here in the next year or 2 or 3 coming up. But in a short order, that community has gelled. The expectations, the business model, everything has gelled between the talent, the guests, the fans, the company. That synergy has all spun in. It just feels like the mission synergy among all the players involved, all sides of the triangle or quadrangle or hexagon, has not. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world here, although I keep hearing rumblings that may be so, but none of this has to be the end of the road. Things could all be settled. There could just be, number one, a settling. The studio side can settle. The Reed Pop side can settle. Labor markets, economics, pandemic fears, everything could just settle. Because the outward signs are insane for this. Star Trek is bigger than it's been in 15 years. There is more future-looking connectivity. That's the bright spot in all this. There's more episodes. There's more actors to pull from. There are more creatives. Please don't forget the creatives to pull from. And that's a long-term sentiment. But there's a little bit of patience involved here and needed. Patience to both sides, two-way. Patience for people just to get to know each other and have relationships on all 3 sides of the aisle. And patience to grow the event, grow the expectation game, and just grow the trust factor. Maybe people are coming in with too abrupt an assumption on all sides. Studio, event producer, and fandom. But whatever it is, right now, we need some baby steps and some learning steps. And when fans don't see guests listed, they don't want to hear, well, that's not the way the celebration model is. That's Star Wars. That's a limited number of movies that are themselves in a little bit of chaos now and a little bit of retrenching. A lot of voice actors for some very popular animation and some small scope movies, I mean, limited series. They're going to be much easier to attract actors to a fan event than the big budget movies have been over the years. So there's a little bit of dynamic change over in Wars Land. But to expect to run a mission the way Celebration is run, at least right now, on all sides, that should be some cause for reflection. Whether there'll be that kind of time to do that, we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see. Because I get the idea that Mission Seattle has not been a thing for some time. And the fact that it comes to the public by some customer service reps drop into a fan's reply, and that's how it busts out and finally forces them to say this. I don't know. I don't know. And what does that say in the big picture about the whole backstage relationship? I don't know. Again, we hear rumblings from all sides. I still wonder if the traveling city, maybe that works again for Star Wars. Will that work for Star Trek? Maybe after people are used to it. But in the upset, people were just thinking about Chicago. And the whole time I'm saying, yes, but it'll be Seattle. Don't get too cozy here because it'll be Seattle next year. And Star Trek fans love their traditions year to year. The cruise people already have it. The Vegas people already have it. You know what you do. Masquerade Bar. Oh my God, we survive Bally's. Forget the end of COVID. We survived Bally's and the split 2 floors. People are so looking forward to being back at the Rio, even if there's some reopening bumps and bruises. But the known, the traditional, the tradition, the annual event, even spin-offs that run for years and years. Bob Picardo's charity auction on the last night before it got bumped by expanding programming. I mean, I can think of so many. And we have Landing Party, the opening night of Con Eve. I mean, we did it at Bally's, but it was like no one knew what was the vibe, where to have things. That's, I think, what Trek fans treasure. Even if you're new to the convention, it's nice to go up to someone who will put their arm around you and say, "Oh, well, here's everything. You want to do this and this, And when that's uprooted every year to year, so I don't know. I know that was a dream of the studio, and who knows, after 2 or 3 years, we might be in that, guys. Letting Vegas run on might have been a way to say, hey, have it either way. Have it both ways. You're going to have more bells, whistles, more cherries on top with the licensed con, but they're letting it happen. And then poor DST in Europe. Okay. What was that? Was that going to grow into a Reed Pop situation as well? I don't know. Part of this gang is how many event producers are out there, and there's a few more in the pop culture space. Do they want to take on dealing with a licensed convention? Is not just all the headaches and logistics of running the event, but now you have to liaise with your franchisee, in this case Paramount. So and have a merged idea there of how you're going to present the franchise and work together. And of course, the franchise is always going to want to promote the new shows and pay homage to the legacy shows. There may even be a tension there about how much legacy versus franchise at a certain time. And of course, eventually the years go by and that becomes a moot point. Or does it? If you're playing your cards right, you're always creating new series at the right time, and there'll always be legacy shows. And that's always a dynamic that'll be in play. But that's all going on. I know just a lot of people. Mission Seattle was a befuddlement, and with no comeback, there was no "this is gone, but this is coming." People are left kind of hanging, which is not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. Quick to point out that Vegas, that creation, was quick to jump in and say, "Hey, if you're wondering about the chaos of the future, we're still here." And they didn't even say, and we'll be back at the Rio, thank God. They didn't say that. But that was out in the zeitgeist. The cruise has announced for 2023 its dates. So there is that. So, you know, Eagle Moss, departure, bankruptcy, implosion caught a lot of the tech world on unawares, off stride. But there's good news. I keep hearing good news about at least the different lines, the different factions landing. Even the book publishing has been a bit, up in the air. So, we're hearing good thoughts about that from Ben. Ben Robinson has been saying, I can't get ahead of things. I have to be NDA, of course, but we're going to try to land this. So don't give up on your little ships yet, right? Star Trek 4, going down this laundry list of the things to be upset about. Star Trek 4 being canceled, I don't think canceled. Paramount is going to make another Star Trek movie or more. That we've had the talk about, even while a live action one is getting its shit together, they may press ahead with an animated movie for Prodigy. In the same way that SpongeBob, the movie is not seen in live action terms as, well, now we have graduated to the big screen. It just feeds viewers back to the cycle of animation, including fresh animation. And hey, as we have seen the last week or two or three, I think people are starting to get it, that Prodigy might be presented for kids, but it is not just for kids. In fact, there are so many, I was tweeting on this, there are so many subtle touches flying right by you in Prodigy. Negotiations with Romulans for the evacuation before the supernova. It will fly right by you in that 22-minute format if you're not paying attention or looking at all the graphics around the edges. It is just as graphic in intent and depth as Lower Decks. May not be the mania. You may not be, you may not be frame grabbing, screen capping 47 million different collector's items on the Trebellion trade ship or something, but a ransacked museum or starbase. But there's all kinds of treats if you're watching. I mean, Jorg's channel, he's made a career now of doing what I just do at home. If I had known I was supposed to take screen caps and share them with the world in 1990s tech, I would have done it. But it's easy to see that Prodigy is really going to be something. Don't write it off if you haven't. I mean, Cadet Alice loves it, but that doesn't mean that you on your level can't also. So, the movie, if there is, we're still waiting on live action, pressing ahead with a Prodigy, and this has not been announced, aside from the speeches that Brian, who came from animation into the motion picture division, we've cited them, we talk about it all the time in Portal 47. They've thrown that out there as a strategy. We can have more than one movie in a theater at once as the movie world itself recovers, right? So I even saw some grumbling about the lack of book titles this year. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. I would just say that if you mean by books, you mean novels, you mean fiction. Okay, there's tons of nonfiction, and we've got the young adult. Rob and Dr. Rob Perlman and Dr. Aaron have got books out. We're going to have some more with that later. There are backstage books coming out. There's lots of book material out there, not all of it fiction. So if you buy the fiction, if by books you mean novels, the comics are running wild right now and filling that gap. So, gang, between all the new series coming, between the TNG reunion on Picard 3rd season, between, yes, Strange New Worlds, by the way, coming back in just a couple of months, don't forget. But Strange New Worlds blowing up the world and reminding everybody what episodic can be. And I'll even say, Discovery just wrapped its season 5. Yes, Discovery. The problem child, the oldest child of the family, who bucks the stereotype of being the oldest child. I keep hearing some incredible things about season 5 and not being the same tone that the last couple have been, not being a universal save, the universe at stake, but something different. They can just hang on to characters, see where all this goes. Even Discovery, about to have maybe another fifth version of a Renaissance that's a little bit different than all the other Renaissances. So that's an amazing situation to have, and for all these other people to share, to exploit, if you will, on all these licenses and events. I mean, there are so many episodes in production that are coming down the pike, no pun intended, and that's all good stuff, which is why I get back to this title. I don't really think it's been that gloom and doomy. I think it's just been growing pains. We've got growing pains of the franchise. We've got growing pains of what this restitched together corporation looks like. We've got growing pains of how they have to give the rest of the world signals about what's happening. And I say that as all the suits above. Increasingly, Star Trek on the ground with its creators. Look at these showrunners we have now. Oh my God. We have so many fanboys and fangirls involved with the shows if they can just wrestle the machinery to the ground. And in a lot of cases, they have been doing just that, increasingly more so as the years go by. And now we know about how they huddle up. They have monthly huddles up meetings, which is why you're starting to see some of this. Well, okay, the Strange New Worlds Lower Decks crossover show coming up is obviously the biggest example, but just the keeping in touch with each other. Even the story about people arguing over Will coming back as Wesley, and who's going to get that first and where best to use it. That's unprecedented. We used to think about, is it possible for the shows to coordinate with, say, the book line? But having 5 series, even if they're not simultaneous, they overlap in a lot. But these year-long writers' rooms and these year-long production schedules, and they're a year off from each other, that actually takes as much as if they were DS9 Voyaging side by side. And thank God they had a quadrant separation to not overlap too much. So yeah, it's kind of amazing. I'm just going to say, for all the angst you might be feeling about some of these events, some of these things falling, some of these things being delayed, it's growing pains. I think when we hit our stride, it's going to be amazing. And not just for what we see on screens. All of the synergy, all the spinoff is going to be, it's going to be there. It's going to be there. We got to let an awful lot of people settle into their jobs. We used to think about that just being the writer's rooms or the visual effects or the set, but whoever's running, this is bigger than that. When you're going to try to have a big, huge franchise, it's going to be bigger than, of course, they're at the core. They're the driving force. But if we're really thinking about something that is just an uber part of our lives, all these other aspects are involved too. And it's only been, as somebody noticed a couple of months ago, it was only 7 years since Discovery premiered in this brave new world on a network called CBS Plus or CBS All Access. And no one knew exactly where this was going to go. And we sure the hell didn't know we'd have everything interrupted for over 2 years by a massive pandemic. It's been an incredible recent few years we've lived through. So I don't know where you are. And if you're not already sounding off in the chat, make sure and let us know. But there's a lot of gears involved here, a lot of wheels turning, and not just on a show or even a group of shows. Now we're talking the full brunt of what we mean by franchise. And it's 7 years, a year after a pandemic. Those are all tiny numbers to figure out when you're interacting with a world that's also dealing at large with labor markets and costs and inflation and supply chains and communication and upheaval. How many have stampeded over to Mastodon? Is Twitter, should I stay or should I go? Should I straddle both? And all the buzz about Hive. Now, by the way, I'm on Mastodon. I haven't even thought to put it on my socials yet. But if you're on Mastodon, we're all still kind of feeling that's going to be a future show, I'm sure. But that's on top of all this, and nobody at Reed Pop or Paramount had anything to do with that. So that's just adding to it. We've gone from 2 or 3 months here of kind of settledness to, it feels like, yes, a lot of things are in upheaval right now. But I'm going to say that I think, look, after the last couple of years, we all survived by Zooming our sanity together with orchestra people playing instruments at home to compose a score so that episodes could finally be released of your favorite live action Treks, or animated for that matter. If we can get through that, we can get through anything. Come on, gang. Anyway, I think that's, I just wanted to say that. I was starting to see this rolling percolation of, oh no, it sure is unsettled out there. And if it is, it's not gloom and doom. It's just growing pains, guys. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed. Sound off, everybody. Let's see you. And if you're new, once again, if you're just with us for the first time, if you're on Twitch or YouTube, you're seeing all the comments. If you're Facebook only, you're only seeing the Facebook. So don't be confused by that. And hey, if you are watching us later right now, you missed the live chat, but you can still comment below, and maybe you can join us Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. European, 9 p.m. Central Europe. Maybe you can join us live sometime, especially as we enter the holiday season. I look forward to that because we do have a global group here on Trekland Tuesdays Live, as we do through everything in Trekland. Just want to say also, once again, reminder, LarryNemecek.com. LarryNemecek.com is where you can sign up. It's where you can get your ticket to make sure you're in for the drawings when we have our mystery guest revealed early December, gang. Okay. Hopefully in the next few days around our American Thanksgiving holiday, we can finally nail this down and let you know what's going on. But you want to be there. It's our 7th anniversary, 7 years of Portal 47, which is amazing in and of itself. And while you're at my site, you can also click in and get information about the LA Away Days special pre and post cruise events, right? In March and February 23rd and March 4th. Believe me, not that lion sign. Also, you can get information while you're there about the big West Coast away days, July 8th through the 17th. That's 10 days in Los Angeles, San Francisco. Again, all of my Trekland tours, the away days, and this special, our partnership with G&T, we're all talking about the locations, but we're also talking about being there in person. You cosplay, we help you. You brought your props, you brought your stuffed animals, whatever it is you want to do when you vacation. If you want to do it the Trek way, we'll help you get there and do it. Most of all, I also, of course, want to thank all of our Patreon folk, our TTL club. I'm talking about Diana Hopkins, Lawrence Todd, Keith Rombach, Nathaniel Robinson, Robin Wilson, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Andrew Dzimski, Pranakasha Productions, Gay Kevin Lundstrom, and Galinda Bruton, And our live wires, once again, Halbert Gunn Johnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hoensi, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, and Casey Shafsky. That's our Patreon folk. Thank you guys so much. We're about to finally take another big step in how we do our streaming, but $5 and $10 a month is what you're doing to help support that. It's simple, not complicated. It's a shout out. Thank you guys so much. We're still working on the access to the interviews past. I may just finally get that done by the holidays and just send you naked URLs. We'll see. Patreon.com/TreklandLive. It's billed kind of like PayPal, but they do it at the end of the month. So if you want to jump in, still, you can still get in for November. I'll update that. Of course, around the rest of Trekland, it's a Tuesday, and Tuesday means there's been new socials. It means there's been a new Trek Files. So you can check out podcast.roddenberry.com for all the Roddenberry podcasts. Trek Files, of course, is on Facebook, also with the document, and our place to comment is there. We're working on community. It's just a hashtag Trek Files on Twitter. This week, our new episode is who is in our new episode this week? This week is the last of my interview with Ralph Sinensky, the original series director of 8 classic episodes like This Side of Paradise and Tholian Web and Return to Tomorrow and Obsession and and Metamorphosis. But it's Ralph talking about Gene Kuhn. So we were so lucky to have Andrea, his former assistant, live at Vegas and talking about Lee Kuhn. She shared previously twice with our Portal 47 folks, so we did this one in public. But it's some of Ralph Sinensky who was on Star Trek because of Gene Kuhn and the Wild Wild West. So you want to check that out. Amazing for a private interview we did, and we've made it. We've podified it. Otherwise, gang, LarryNemecek.com, Larry Nemecek on Twitter. Still, it's Larry Nemecek on Mastodon too, if you want to try and get over there and figure that out. Larry Nemecek's Trekland on YouTube. Please like and subscribe there. Also, Facebook and Instagram. Portal47.net. Yes, you'll be hearing a lot more about that when we have the open house in a couple of weeks. We're going to have our holiday gift offer come on. You want to stay tuned for all that. Taking a year off from Cyber Monday and Black Friday this year, but we're going to have an awesome gift offer. But you know what? Pay attention. We might just throw some crazy 24-hour deal out there, whether it's Black Monday, Cyber Monday or not. And you want to stay tuned for that. Okay. We'll take a short break here. I mean, a mini break. I'll be right back. But for those leaving right now, for all the YouTubers, stay healthy, gang. They're talking about the wave of COVID coming back. And hey, I got boosted. I had my covariant booster, plus I got my flu shot, which I rarely do. But I did not want to lose any more time this year. So yay for that. Take care of yourself, okay? And stay woke. There's still misinformation out there. There's still things to pay attention to. And still things that you may learn that are a shock. But if you check the source, you'll know whether to trust it or not, okay? Just be open to that, but be smart when you're being opened. What can I say? I guess we say Trek well. All right. Now, I have a surprise for you. I checked Parrot Analytics again. No new insights. The trend lines, as we look at the ratings, their analytics, their algorithm for demand expressions for every show in most every country, we have traditionally, since the beginning of Discovery, in almost the beginning of Trekland Tuesdays Live, checked for how the Star Trek shows are doing. Well, there's no updates. Normally we'd be looking at Prodigy. The animated shows are never in the top 10 in the US Weekly, which is what's available to look at publicly. They're at parrotanalytics.com/insights. They've gotten interesting about being regular or not with their postings of their top 10 digital and offline, all lines. So no, there's nothing new to check up, and there's a new date reported in the trend lines, the 60-day trend line and 30, but the numbers are still the same for Prodigy. The numbers are still the same for the other series that aren't fresh right now. So I'm going to dispense with that this week. Hopefully I will check every week to see if there's something new to talk about. We will certainly look at some of their big white papers, but for right now, let's just dive into the chat and see what everybody is up to today. Did I stir anything up? Anybody wondering about things? And if you are new, please sound off if you haven't already. I'm back scrolling to the front as I do every week, and let us know where you're from and what you're about. And if you've been a while since you've been with us, that's great. Analysis of sci-fi. I know you've been with us before, but I'm going to say hello, and you're coming in over from YouTube. There we go. Jay-Z. Woohoo. Are you going to be with us? We'll see. Newbie, I think, too. Nathaniel, there you go. The general audience won't come to Trek if they can't get a taste of it. Some series need to be available for free Star Trek. Well, the almost forgotten bit about Prodigy is that it's got a Nickelodeon window. Now, Nickelodeon's cable, it's not free either, but a whole hell of a lot of people have access to Nickelodeon. I haven't heard any reporting about how it's doing on Nickelodeon. That would be something to dive into, or what the Nickelodeon. It's a Nickelodeon production. Here we are once again, the dividing line between creator and distributor. Paramount TV might make Cheers or Frasier, but then it's on NBC. So they are the studio of note, but that's finally actually turning up on Nickelodeon. I'd like to know what that's happening. What's happening there. But you've got a point, Nathaniel. You've got a point. The bigger picture, though, is how is the world at large, how is TV consumption altering, evolving, changing? How many people are hanging on to terrestrial only or terrestrial versus their cable, in which case it's no longer free? What's happening there? We'll see. But I agree. At least having one bust out the door of Paramount Plus is awesome. That's why I'm curious about Prodigy, and have from the beginning been curious to see what happens with Prodigy. Narda, I hope I got unfroze in time. Dave, good to see you there. Let's see what's going on. Hi, Andrew, and once again, thanks for being a TTLer. What are you saying here, Rose? Good to see you too. When is open house happening? Early December, Rose. One way or the other. Hell or high water. That's what's happening. Hey, Analysis. Star Trek fans are always worried about Star Trek going canceled. TOS Enterprise and people complaining about new Star Trek is always causing other fans to worry. Well, true. But in this case, aside from some of the jokey things I saw about Star Trek's being canceled by the zombification of the toxic tubers rose up to say something about everybody being fired, which was hysterical. There's never been more people watching Star Trek series than there are right now. But I was talking today about the real world tangible things happening. Mission Seattle going away. And at what point was it canceled and no one bothered to share the news? Eagle Moss being up at Star Trek 4, those kinds of things. Those are real world events. Nobody made that up. And that's a level of unease that's out there. I know. Well, good for you, Melanie. Despite all the setbacks, a lot to be grateful for. There you go. It's amazing how when I started Portal 47 in 2017, I'm sorry, 2015. What am I saying? This is our 7th anniversary coming up. When I started Portal, I had to explain what freeconferencecall.com was. And we were all just on phone. It was all audio only. And within 6-8 months, they had added cameras, and we added the slideshows, the share screens. So, I was trying to educate the world back then and get it beyond, school use and coaches and educators and training. I was pioneering a new field that the field caught up with me, thank goodness. Hey, Michael, it has been a while. Thank you for joining us. Yay. Weymouth? Is it Weymouth? Is that how we pronounce it? Suburban city, a few miles from Boston. Been watching Trek since before TNG. Well, glad to have you with us, Michael. I don't know how you found us, but good to have you here and checking out, hearing about everything Trekland. There we go. I guess I started kind of a Thanksgiving deluge, and there's nothing wrong with that. So everybody's sounding off. Christoph, was the Seattle cancellation due to the event Trek Paramount side, or maybe due to the convention center extension not getting finished in time? I've read hints along the latter line. That's funny, Christoph, because the hints I hear are along the former line. Just saying. That it had nothing to do with the building construction. We'll see. An extra for cat people. Okay. Well, I hope Michael that you caught up with us. What are you saying? Oh, thank you for sharing on your first trip in. You remember watching the premiere with your dad? The premiere of 1966 TOS? Used to be afraid of Spock. His blood was green and he had scary eyebrows. Now he's your favorite Trek character. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining in. And yes. What are we saying? But what about people? We're just an H away from cat people. Oh, chat people. Right. Well, I'm glad everybody is. Some of us barely survive Bally's. Well, yeah. 2 years in, almost 2.5 years in, and finally the COVID caught me. Yeah. Thank God I was boosted to the max, but I was starting to be fading. Would have had another booster if I could have. I think that's what it was. I think my last booster had faded. And fabulous to see even more faces, even from 2021, even behind the masks. Oh, yeah. The 2021 event will always be infamous. It happened. That was awesome. But it felt so uneven. This is how I viscerally remember 2021 Vegas. And thank you guys for filling out the Twitch landscape. Eagle Moss was painful. Yes. But again, hopefully we have not, the final shoe has not fallen. That's a horrible non-metaphor. Hello, Christian. I see you elsewhere around my domains. Is this your first time with us over here? But thanks for joining. And look, it's Duralter coming in from Germany. Yay. Don't give up our little ships on Eagle Moss, nor the big ship build that's in the lurch. Right. The Enterprise Weekly. I just wish that had happened 12 years ago when it started. You can blame the tsunami in Japan for not having build the Enterprise 12 years ago. Before Eagle Moss and little ships were a thing. Yes. Prodigy has been wonderful. And how about the ending of last week's episode? Gang, I have a second opinion that's on the way about some things. I raised it online. Now maybe it's out and people are talking about it. I cheated and I went to Twitter. Yes, Twitter still. But that's coming. So there we go. Anne Marie. Yeah, I know. I love Cadet Alice too. And we're going to see her this weekend. We're going to record some new episodes, at least one, hopefully two, this next weekend. We're not trying to be the cutting edge voice of every new episode the weekend it airs, but we'll be there. Cadet Alice is worth waiting for on her pace and her visits to Mimi and Grandpa. Yes, exactly. Long time no see. So there we go. Well, we're glad it's only a case of computer act up. There we go. We'll let you guys converse. So analysis. People always complain about Star Trek being axed. Right. Well, see, analysis, what happens in the modern world is if you're constantly screaming about Trek being axed, being canceled, or as they say in what is it they say in the UK? Ankled? Or is that variety speak? What's the word for being fired in England? Somebody's going to tell me. There's a special word the Brits have. But no, entertainment speak is ankled. Or is that hired? Oh, forget it. There's actually all these words for being fired, being cut loose that people even use, and they're out there. My point is, there are people who have learned how to make bucks off the hits. And thus we have the trots and bowls, the bots and trolls, the clickbait. Right. People get alarmed, they click, and boom, there you go. Jared, hi. Hi, man. Extremely disappointed in the current novel situation. We've gone from 2 a month to 2 a year. Well, was that a correction that was overdue? You know, I know the guys and gals who are putting those out, but they're not the ones calling the shots on how often and what and when to publish. When they're allowed to have, and sometimes they've gotten to pitch some things when they, the big arcs of new projects and long running things. But as far as the basic nuts and bolts money decisions, it's the illustrious and probably ever evolving money folk. And I do not know where those decisions are. There's probably somebody looking at, again, this turmoil, this change, this expansion, this new folks involved, people not having relationships back and forth. I have survived several. I came into Star Trek after a big upheaval, professional Star Trek after Gene's death, and there was upheaval that I helped kind of piece back together. And then miraculously, things were pretty much for the next 14 years until Enterprise ended, Berman era, and the Viacom divorce, and then the implosion of Decipher that owned the fan club and Communicator magazine. All of that happening in the same year. It was amazing. Anything was left standing. So yeah, and then a couple more echoes after that, as when the entire Star Trek.com team was laid off by the new people who didn't know how things worked, and that then it sat unused for 3 years because who needs a Star Trek site if there's no new Star Trek being made? Yes. And that's where John Van Sitter's, as I said once, kind of forever earned his stripes, keeping something going through the fallow years on the corporate side, much less on the fan side. And there are fanfics. Absolutely. They have always been there. The fan fiction got people through the initial cancellation of the show and through all those fallow years and the comeback years, the original fallow years, aka the 70s. Yes, season 4 is going to be out in a couple of weeks. I think we're talking about Discovery. Yes. Okay. Speaking of season, yes, I noted that a little earlier. Can't wait. Talked about it too. Well, it's okay, Narda, because they change the tech every year. So if you don't like one, that's the thing about Discovery. If one season isn't, just hang around. It'll be something 40% different the next year. And 40% of the characters will be in and out. So it's it's like the automat of Star Treks. I don't know. Do you think that is Picardo trying to play a Who incarnation? If there's going to be an American Doctor, let him do it. That would be funny. He's getting a lot of fun and traction out of that. Hey, Michael. Good to see you here, doctor or otherwise. I know you must get that all the time. Sorry. Do I have some favorite fiction novels to recommend? Personally, I found the 50th Anniversary Legacies trilogy to be quite good. You know what, Michael? I started off reading, you know what? I never bought a Blish novelization, which in the early days when there was nothing available, almost nothing, the Blish novelizations just seemed to me like, well, I have the episodes. Why would I buy versions of the episode? The idea that, in hindsight, it's like, well, gosh, in an era when you couldn't even have a tape, much less any kind of personal copy of an episode to go back and refer to, what did you do? Well, that's why people bought scripts. And that's why some people started taping the shows off with what the media you did have, which was, audio cassettes. So but I never had that urge to, but the novelizations were just novelizations. Original fiction, I did buy. I did have the first few years. I had the Bantam novels. They were ish. And then, the early pocketbooks for the first few years. I remember How Much for Just the Planet was the last novel I bought. I got about halfway through it, and it's not that I didn't care. It's just that's just where I stopped going by there. It's where I just stopped visiting that shop. Partly because the new series had jumped in by then. Next Generation was going, and I knew the novels weren't canon, and I did not want to, after the novelization of the Farpoint, what was the next one? Ghost Ship or something? Anyway, I realized that at any moment, anything in a book could be contradicted on screen, because that's just the paradigm. Because TV writers have too hectic a life, having anybody come in and tell them, up until recently, when there's been some pre-planning done, have anybody tell them what to do. Because at some point, heads of franchises will change, and whether it's in a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, I'm looking at you, Hoba's supernova. The big picture explanation of something will change or alter or evolve, and you had the emotional investment in the book at the moment, your enjoyment, but long term, it's not a safe investment, and I'm all about the long term. So most of the time. So I just got the point where, also my active brain, by that time I was working professionally, and I didn't need fiction that was not going to be official canon muddying my canon brain when we were churning out 2 shows a week and having a movie. That said, thank God for Memory Beta. I'm way more thankful for Memory Beta than I am Memory Alpha, because when I need to go to second and third tier canon, I can go look at the choices that are the options that are out there, as I'm sure many other people do too. Who is, hey, look who's here, Tumor Boy from Twitch. Hey yourself. We definitely are in another golden age, Michael, or Latinum age. I saw somebody call it the other day. Yeah, the core product is not only there and multiplying, but it's getting better. It's gosh, what a concept! As if every Trek series didn't get better the more it wore on. Yeah, I do believe this. I think we're starting to be spoiled highly, and we've got this media. We can connect. They can connect. You can connect with your creators and your shows. They can connect back. There is so much documenting going on now by the studio. I don't feel this responsibility that if we didn't get something done. Back in the old days, we were all in the studio together. If something didn't get recorded for posterity, I felt guilty. Now, varying up and down depending on budgets and all that, but I think there's a ton more documenting being done. Digital tech helps that. We're not recording film or movie tape anymore. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. I feel the same way. I just want to get there. And now it's going to be overlapping. It's going to be overlapping Christmas. Hey, look who's here. You have a very specific opinion, Frage. It's John Fraser, everybody, from Star Trek Unlimited. Very specific opinions about Mastodon versus Hive, of course. Well, all righty. Please proceed, Governor. Thank you there for the trends there. I am thinking it's going to be Wednesday the 6th, Rose. That's my target date, but I can't say that till we can say it. Oh, Hive is mobile only? I just tried to sign in the other day and it wouldn't take my email, so I don't know what was up with that. The future is decentralized. Yes, but I said the other day, maybe this will go away, but for right now, I just feel like when I get on Mastodon, I still feel like I'm trying to navigate a river in Washington state that's swollen by logs. And I'm just trying to navigate the river with all these big chunks floating down. It just still feels clunky. I know that's the newness of it. We'll see. We'll see something's going to happen one way or the other. We'll see. But it's certainly decentralized. That's true. Oh, Der Alti. Do I have a most favorite Trek episode where you say, yes, whenever I feel bad, I watch this? You know what? I was going to say, this happens maybe once every 2 years when I'm in that kind of mindset with that kind of reaction. If you mean comfort food, yeah, I'll put on Doomsday Machine, which is a horribly traumatic episode. But I know it, so I know every nook and cranny and line and frame of that episode. When I was in college, I was going to film it for a college project. We were going to simplify the script and the sets down, but the bottle show idea works, kids, whenever you're under a budget demand. But no, there's just something, and every music cue and every music stinger, and I guess I don't think in terms of going to Trek for therapy. I know a lot of people do, and that's awesome. I have a bad day. I'm going to sit down and binge this. And there's things right now that I want to rewatch that have nothing to do with it's my favorite. I just need to watch them because it's been a long time. But I keep meaning, don't be shocked, everybody, but I keep meaning to sit down. In fact, Janet and I doing this together, we keep meaning to sit down and watch the 3 Kelvin movies. I know. Just to remember, just remember what the teens were like. Because some of them I've just seen, like, I think, did I see Stid twice? Yeah, I think I only saw Stid once, Beyond twice. So did I answer your question? I think so, maybe. I don't do that a lot or all the time, because usually I don't have, I mean, like, watching something extra is like a luxury. There's always something else sitting here trying to build out Trekland and the Trek tours and all of that. Yes, that was very quick. Parrots this week, wasn't it? Hey, Glenn, what's going on? That's okay. You're fine. You're here. Yes, shout out. I have no connection to the Power Ranger universe or fandom, but I know a lot of people do, obviously, and some crossover folk. And I'm just going to say that it was the family had not meant to mention suicide, and maybe that would have come later, but some fan leaked that, as I'm being told. So again, at some point, it's always good to raise awareness on something like mental health stigmas and mysteries and things not spoken of that ought to be spoken of. But in the moment, sometimes you're also dealing with the family's emotions. But the way I've been told by some in the fandom, fans leaked the fact that it was a suicide. So tragedy all the way around. And hopefully, eventually, that awareness can do some good for some people somewhere. And yes, very sad. I didn't know you were such a Blondie fan, Glenn. Okay. Episodes of New Trek are free to watch on YouTube. Yeah, I think almost every time they've launched a new season, they've made the season premiere within a week or two. They've made it available on YouTube. Yes. Yes, Doralta, it's Thanksgiving again. It doesn't seem real. This year has been, I think everybody expected this big marching band parade emergence from the COVID lockdowns and pandemic. And instead, it's just been kind of like a treadmill wheeing by, especially around here. The TNG premiere. Absolutely. Okay. Hey, Diana. Well, we don't make you get a tardy slip, so it's okay. It's good to see you. Your first Trek episode was the best of both worlds, the final moments. There you go. Well, Doralta, Build Enterprise is halted midstream, and that is one of the aspects that they're trying to very desperately get back. A question from before my sun burned hot in space, Michael. Do I think it will take long for Admiral Janeway to realize who the protostar prodigies really are? Think she'll find the starflighters? Define long. Well, my point is, at the beginning, I didn't know. After they found the diviner, I didn't know. I think I even told Cadet Ellis this. We ask whether he's faking them out or he really is having a fractured memory that's slowly coming back. And I guess the answer to that, spoilers, is that he's not faking them out, that he really is getting his memory back a bit at a time, as when he remembers Gwen's name, Gwendala. I want a Gwendala Dala. I know Cadet Ellis wants a Gwendala Dala. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Michael. You get sacked in England. Exactly. In America, if you get sacked, you get concrete galoshes to go with it. Yes, they get sacked from their jobs. Don't babble, Christoph. Ooh, see? Got the chop. Okay, got the boot. That's more colorful, but that's known. Got the chop. Okay. I'm going to let you guys have your sledgehammer conversation, okay? Rose, I promise you we'll let you know as fast. I'll probably do some special videos because we're coming down later than a normal promo window would be. Okay. Sledgehammer getting some love, guys. Excuse me. Some fond remembrance of the Blishes. Hey, Christian. I know. And you know what? I realized after I was in college and met other people and other fans that I was really weird. Like everybody had the Blish novels because there was no other way to have Trek in your home. And people would go back and read them. Now, people would be confused. What's the vegan tyranny? What's the vegan tyranny? What's this? What's, the final draft bits that got cut from episodes that Blish didn't know and put in his novelizations, or the early bits that nobody knew. Some of it kind of jarring when you compare, especially the early episodes, when you compare them to the real time. Now, later on, after the show was done and they're still churning the novelizations out, there was time to get caught up on that and have an archival script sent. But in the beginning, in almost real time, the first book or two were really way off on the aired episode versus the novelization on details, sometimes even plot points. But I was weird. I never owned the set. I checked out the James Blish novelizations of the animateds, and I was amazed that he got a full book out of one of them. But no, I never owned any of that. And that was like such a gimme for early day fans, first gen fan or second gen fans, especially. Of course, Trekkies go to Hive. I know. I think about that. Wow. Your favorite episode when you need to pick up Aldine, Mud. There you go. December 6th is a Tuesday. I would aim it to be Wednesday. Wednesday. Anyway, just to do that. Doomsday Machine was traumatic to me as a 5-year-old kid watching it for the first time. It terrified me, but it's your favorite to this day. See, I was 15, 16, so I was out of that window. But I hear you. I hear you, Frage. I hear you. Oh, look, we've got some. We've got some. There we go. Feel good. A feel good Trek. Tribble's quadruple feature. TOS, TAS, DS9. Well, maybe not that last one. Talk about traumatic. The trumpet solo in Doomsday Machine. My favorite. I still say John Williams ripped off his Jaws theme from Saul Kaplan. But to this day, I just love the little funeral dirge when they come back from the opening titles and the constellation just sitting there dead. And it's that little funeral kind of a minor key taps. It's amazing. It's amazing. Hey, Linda, I'm glad you could make it. No worries, obviously. Yes. In hindsight, the Kelvin films were a space. They were a space saver, and they brought tons of new fandom in, and they made the media still keep talking about Star Trek like a thing. I still think that current Trek doesn't owe that much to it in intangible ways, but as a big picture, we would have had Star Trek coming back one way or the other. You've all seen anything doesn't sit still for long, especially something that's $1 billion property, billions of dollar property. All the idiots that said Star Trek is dead in 2005 didn't have a clue what they were talking about, which I talked about it the day back when I was writing an editorial piece at the back page of the magazine, the Titan magazine, because the communicator was already dead. Let's see. The cheesy third season of TOS is your comfort food. Oh, that's funny. They make you seasick when you're too close to your 4K. I understand. I know what you mean, Christoph. Everybody showing your therapy, sharing your therapy. Yeah. Trials and trips. There you go. Spock's brain, Duralta. Hey, okay. Are we at the end of the line? Tribbles or immunity syndrome. Very good. Interesting. Oh, of course, global folk. But the German language market, the first 2 Prodigy episodes are free to watch back on the Togo station's homepage. Okay. Yes, I understand you're getting Paramount Plus later this year. December 8th. Let's see. Questions. Concrete galoshes. I was referring to, cement overshoes in concrete galoshes. Swim with the penguin in Gotham. No, I'm talking about swimming with Bella on Sigma Iosha 2. Okay. Star Trek is dead. No, yeah, it went into hibernation. And then it only went into hibernation for a couple of years because the money boys didn't realize that the geeks won. That was just starting to dawn on people. I think Big Bang Theory started about that time too. Well, it looks like we are at the end of the chat. I just wanted to say, it looks like everybody has burned through. Has everybody took a week and everybody's burned through their angst about Seattle? Their questions. I think there's more questions there, but there's more questions than rumor and gossip. I don't know. Just to say, though, everybody, I do want to once again thank our Patreons for helping us out. And if you would like to see what all the Patreon hubbub is about, thanks so much for our TTL Club and our Live Wires for their support. And if you want to help out, $5, $10 a month, patreon.com/TreklandLive. You may see some other creatives when you go to Patreon that you want to support by project or just on an ongoing basis. It might be worth a look. I'm very appreciative to let you all know this extra boost that's helped us gradually keep going through the pandemic and actually finally start expanding the reach. If you haven't seen, again, we're doing a lot of bits and pieces over on YouTube. Our mystery guest, once again, will be announced as soon as we can nail down the date. I promise. It will be in December. Okay. It's our 7th anniversary open house. It's a fun evening. A lot of you have been with us at night. Some of you in this chat, I think, have won door prizes, much less enjoyed something like Mike McMahon last year going on for 2 hours live and interacting with me. And also he was cheating and looking at the chat stream. but that's okay. LarryNemechek.com. You can get on my news list to know all about it. You can go over there to find out about the cruises. The cruises special tour here in LA, location sites, and LA Way Days location site tour the day before and the day after the tour. You can check that out, as well as the big 10 day that's coming in July with Geek Nation Tours. Much less you can click on if you're just in LA by yourself, not a special event. Of course, Trekland Treks, boom, is your custom design tour. I don't want to ever forget that in the midst of talking about our event tours, right? Anytime you're in LA and you have a day to spare, we pick you up at your hotel. We have already picked out 4 places to go to. We have an In-N-Out lunch or a fast food lunch that makes sense. It's an awesome day, and I know some of you in the chat today have been there too. That's it, folks. Aside from reminder that, yes, we've got Ralph Sininsky talking Gene Kuhn in this week's The Trek Files at Facebook, where the document is and the comment place. But you can get Trek Files where all fine podcasts are caught. And of course, podcast.roddenberry.com is the home of all the Roddenberry podcast family, including Mission Log and Sci-Fi 5 and Fan Addicts and all of that. And yeah, I'm still with the Bluebird, Larry Nemechek. I'm also, I always want to say Montrose. I'm also at Mastodon. Montrose is just down the road from us. Mastodon, I got to keep figuring that out, as is everybody right now. But hey, YouTube, we're there. That's where all the stuff is, including some shorts. We're putting up little clips and shorts. Second Opinion is there. Cadet Alice is there. Please like and subscribe that, as well as our Instagram and our Facebook. Portal47.net. Your backstage pass to all things Star Trek, even more in depth with Dr. Trek. Love to have you join up with us. For sure, come over for free when we open the doors for the open house in another 2 or 3 weeks. Alrighty, that's going to do it for us today. It's so good to see everybody. And again, as we say every week, please, here in the States and around the world, as we enter this holiday season, please stay healthy. Do all the things. Please take another breath and keep going. The battle for sanity and rationality goes on. Please stay woke. Check your sources and trek well, everybody.